The laughter started as a ripple and grew into a wave that crashed over Amara Thompson's shoulders like ice water. She stood frozen in the center of the dining room at Le Parisien, the city's most expensive French restaurant, her notepad trembling slightly in her dark brown hands. The man at table 7 leaned back in his chair, his crisp white shirt catching the bright chandelier light, a cruel smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he repeated his order in what she now recognized as an obscure French dialect from the Loire Valley. Around him, his business associates snickered into their wine glasses. The couple at table 9 pretended not to stare, but their eyes followed her every movement. Even some of the other servers paused in the bright, airy dining room, watching to see what would happen next. The man's voice carried across the white tablecloths and gleaming silverware, each syllable designed to cut. "Surely someone working in a French restaurant should understand basic French," he said, switching back to English but keeping that mocking tone. His blue eyes glinted with satisfaction as he looked at his companions. Or perhaps the hiring standards have fallen. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her beautiful face, with its high cheekbones and warm brown eyes, remained carefully neutral, though heat flooded her cheeks. The red uniform dress she wore suddenly felt too tight, too visible. She was aware of every eye in the room, every whispered comment, every pitying glance from her co-workers. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading since she took this job 6 months ago. The moment when someone would reduce her to nothing more than her current circumstances, ignoring everything she'd worked for, everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd become. The moment when her education, her languages, her dreams would be invisible beneath the uniform of a waitress trying desperately to save her mother's life. But before we understand how Amara's world shattered and rebuilt itself in that bright dining room, before we see how one cruel moment became the catalyst for something beautiful, we need to go back 3 hours to when her shift began, when she had no idea that this evening would change everything. Have you ever been judged by someone who didn't know your story? Have you watched someone dismiss another person's worth based on their job or appearance? If this story resonates with you, if you believe in second chances and the power of dignity over cruelty, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters in spreading messages of hope and respect. 3 hours earlier, Amara had tied her hair back into a neat bun and smoothed down her red dress uniform, checking her reflection in the employee bathroom mirror. The bright fluorescent lights showed the exhaustion around her eyes, the worry lines that had appeared over the past year. At 26, she sometimes felt twice that age. "Ready for another night?" her co-worker Destiny asked, appearing beside her in an identical red uniform. Destiny was a petite woman with kind eyes who'd worked at Le Parisien for 3 years. "As ready as I'll ever be," Amara replied, forcing a smile. "How's the crowd tonight?" "Packed. Lots of business dinners. You know how they get." Destiny applied lipstick, her voice sympathetic. "Rich guys trying to impress each other. Just smile, take their orders, and collect those tips." Amara nodded. Tips were everything now. Every dollar went into the medical fund for her mother, who lay in a hospital bed across town, fighting an illness that had drained their savings and then some. The treatments were experimental, expensive, and absolutely necessary. The dining room at Le Parisien was beautiful in its brightness. Large windows let in the city lights and crystal chandeliers cast clear, white light across everything. The walls were painted soft cream, and fresh flowers in shades of blue and purple decorated each table. It was elegant without being dark or moody, the kind of place where wealthy people came to see and be seen. Amara took her section, moving between tables with practiced grace. Years of etiquette training from her private school days came back automatically. She knew which fork went where, how to pour wine without spilling a drop, how to be present but invisible. Table 7 arrived at 7:30. 4 men in expensive suits, the kind who wore their wealth like armor. She noticed them immediately because one of them, the tallest with salt and pepper hair, was laughing too loudly, his voice carrying across the room. "Your section," Destiny whispered as she passed. "Good luck." Amara approached with her notepad and her professional smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Le Parisien. My name is Amara and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with drinks?" The loud one, who she would later learn was named Julian Ashford, barely glanced at her. "Champagne. The Cristal. And bring it quickly. We're celebrating." "No please. No acknowledgement. Just commands." Amara wrote it down. "Of course. I'll be right back with that." She returned with the champagne, a bottle that cost more than her monthly rent, and poured it carefully into each flute. The men ignored her, deep in conversation about a business deal that had apparently gone through that day. Something about real estate and millions of dollars, the numbers casually thrown around like loose change. Ready to order? She asked when there was a pause in their conversation. That's when Julian Ashford looked at her properly for the first time. His blue eyes swept over her face, her uniform, her dark skin, and something shifted in his expression. Not attraction. Not interest. Something colder. Calculation. Let's see if you can handle this, he said and launched into rapid French. Amara understood every word. He was ordering the duck breast with a cherry reduction, medium rare with asparagus and roasted potatoes. But he wasn't using standard French. He'd switched to a regional dialect from the Loire Valley, something most people wouldn't recognize unless they'd studied it specifically or spent time in that area. She stood there, her pen poised, and made a choice. She could respond, could show him that she understood perfectly. But something in his tone, in the way he glanced at his companions with that smug smile, told her he wanted a reaction. He wanted her confusion, her embarrassment. So she waited, her face neutral, giving him nothing. He repeated it, slower this time, his voice dripping with condescension. Do you need me to switch to English? Or perhaps. He trailed off and his companions started to laugh. That's when he said it, loud enough for surrounding tables to hear. Surely someone working in a French restaurant should understand basic French. Or perhaps the hiring standards have fallen. The room shifted. Conversations paused. Eyes turned toward them. Amara felt her throat tighten, felt the familiar burn of humiliation that she'd fought against her entire life. Every time someone had assumed she was less than she was because of how she looked, where she came from, what job she held. But under that humiliation was something else. Something that had been building since she'd first arrived at this table. Anger. Not hot and explosive, but cold and sharp. The anger of someone who had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to be reduced to a punchline in someone's cruel joke. Julian Ashford leaned back in his chair, his smile wide, waiting for her to stammer out an apology or hurry away in embarrassment. His companions watched with barely concealed amusement. The whole restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Amara looked at him directly, her brown eyes meeting his blue ones. Then, in perfect Loire Valley dialect, with the aristocratic accent she'd learned during her semester abroad in France, she spoke. The duck breast with cherry reduction, medium rare, accompanied by asparagus and roasted potatoes. An excellent choice, monsieur. Though I might suggest the Chateau Margaux from our wine list to complement the richness of the duck. The 2010 vintage would be particularly appropriate, unless you prefer something less refined. The silence that followed was absolute. She switched to flawless Parisian French, the kind spoken in the finest salons. For the other gentlemen, shall I provide recommendations, or would you prefer to order in English for clarity? I'm fluent in both, as well as Spanish, Italian, and Mandarin, should any of those be more comfortable for you. She smiled then, a smile that held no warmth, only professional courtesy. I'll give you a moment to decide on your entrees. The Chateau Margaux is in our cellar, should you wish to try it. Then she turned and walked away, her head high, her steps measured and calm, while behind her the silence shattered into stunned whispers. In the kitchen, her hands shook as she put in the order. The other servers stared at her, and even the chef looked up from his station. Did you just do what I think you did? Destiny asked, her eyes wide. Amara nodded, not trusting her voice. Girl, Destiny breathed. That was beautiful. But you know there's going to be fallout, right? Of course there would be. Men like that didn't accept humiliation gracefully. They had power, money, influence. They could complain to management, could get her fired, could make her life difficult in a dozen different ways. But as Amara stood in the bright kitchen, surrounded by the smell of cooking food and the sound of orders being called, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. For 6 months she'd swallowed her pride, had accepted being invisible and overlooked. She'd done it for her mother, would continue to do it for her mother. But tonight, just for a moment, she'd let herself be seen for who she really was. And whatever came next, she would face it with the same dignity she'd shown in that dining room. The question was, what would Julian Ashford do now? Julian Ashford sat in stunned silence, his champagne glass halfway to his lips, frozen in the act of celebrating. Around him, his business associates looked equally shocked, their eyes following the waitress as she disappeared into the kitchen with perfect posture and unhurried grace. Did she just? Robert Chin, his CFO, started to say, then trailed off, apparently unable to finish the thought. Speak Loire Valley dialect better than half the French people I know? Yes, finished Patricia Okafor, the only woman at the table and his VP of International Operations. Her dark eyes held something that looked like approval. She also offered wine pairing advice that was spot on, by the way. The 2010 Chateau Margaux would be perfect with duck. Julien set his glass down carefully, aware that his hand was trembling slightly. Heat crawled up his neck, a sensation he rarely experienced. Embarrassment. Shame. He'd expected stammering confusion, maybe an apology. He'd wanted to show off in front of his colleagues, to demonstrate his sophistication. Instead, he'd revealed his own ignorance. "You okay, Julien?" asked Marcus. "No, wait, the user said not to use Marcus. Let me rename this character." "You okay, Julien?" asked Timothy Brooks, his head of acquisitions, though his tone suggested he found the whole situation amusing. "Fine," Julien said tightly. But he wasn't fine. His stomach churned with an unfamiliar feeling. He'd been cruel, intentionally so, and it had backfired spectacularly. The worst part was that everyone else in the restaurant had witnessed it. He could feel their eyes on him now, could hear the whispered conversations. Julian Ashford, billionaire real estate developer, taken down by a waitress in a red dress. No, not just a waitress. Someone educated. Someone who clearly had a story far deeper than the uniform suggested. Amara returned with bread and appetizers, her face serene. She set down each plate with professional efficiency, explained each dish in clear English, and took their entree orders from the others at the table. When she got to Julien, she simply waited, her notepad ready, her expression neutral. "The duck," he managed to say. "As I originally ordered." "And the wine, monsieur?" Her voice was polite but cool. "Yes. The Chateau Margaux. The 2010. An excellent choice." She wrote it down and left again, her red dress catching the bright light from the chandeliers. Patricia leaned forward. "You want to tell me what that was about?" "What?" "The French ordering. The whole performance." She studied him with the sharp gaze that made her so good at her job. That wasn't about testing the service. That was about putting someone in their place. Julien shifted uncomfortably. It was just a joke. A joke at whose expense? Patricia's tone was gentle but firm. "Julien, I've known you for 5 years. You've built an empire through hard work and smart decisions. But sometimes..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes you forget that not everyone starts from the same place. Not everyone has the same opportunities." "I didn't start with money," Julien said defensively. "I built everything myself." "True. But you're a white man from a connected family. Your father knew people. You had access." Patricia picked up her water glass. "That woman serving us? She's working at a restaurant despite clearly being educated enough to do much more. There's a story there. And you just tried to humiliate her for entertainment." The words hit harder than Julien wanted to admit. He'd always prided himself on being self-made, on working harder than everyone else. But he'd also had advantages, connections, doors that opened because of who he was and what he looked like. Amara returned with their entrees, each plate arranged beautifully. She set Julien's duck in front of him with the same careful attention she gave the others, then poured the wine. As she tilted the bottle, he noticed her hands. They were steady, graceful, but he could see calluses that suggested hard work. And on her left wrist, barely visible under her sleeve, was what looked like the edge of a hospital bracelet. "Will there be anything else?" she asked the table. "This looks wonderful, thank you," Patricia said warmly. Amara's expression softened slightly. "You're welcome. Please let me know if you need anything." As she walked away, Timothy muttered, "She handled that better than most diplomats I've met." "That's because she probably is a diplomat. Or could be." Patricia cut into her fish. "People don't acquire that level of language skill and cultural knowledge by accident. That takes years of study." Julien found he had no appetite despite the duck being perfectly cooked. The wine was excellent, of course. Everything Amara had said was correct. But it tasted like ash in his mouth. Throughout the meal, he watched her move through the dining room. She was attentive without being intrusive, professional without being cold, except when she dealt with his table. With them, she maintained a polite distance, a wall of courtesy that felt like judgment. Other diners clearly liked her. He heard an elderly couple at a nearby table thank her profusely in Italian, and she responded in the same language, making them laugh. A family with young children got special attention, and she somehow made the kids feel important without disrupting the fancy atmosphere. Even the other servers seemed to respect her, asking her questions in French when the chef wanted to clarify something. She was good at this job. But she was meant for something more. When she brought the check, Julien noticed her name tag for the first time. Mara. It was beautiful, dignified, like her bearing. He added a generous tip, far more than the usual 20%. It felt inadequate, like trying to buy forgiveness. But he signed the receipt and stood, his colleagues following. At the door Julian paused. He could leave, could pretend this never happened, could go back to his penthouse and his comfortable life. Or he could do something he rarely did, admit he was wrong. He turned back. Amara was clearing their table, stacking plates efficiently. She glanced up as he approached and something guarded crossed her face. "I wanted to apologize," Julian said, aware that other diners could hear. "My behavior was unacceptable. You didn't deserve that." Amara set down the plates carefully. Up close, he could see the intelligence in her brown eyes, the weariness that suggested struggles he knew nothing about. "Thank you for saying so. I mean it. What I did was cruel." He hesitated. "Your French is impeccable. Where did you study?" "Sorbonne. Study abroad during university." Her tone was neutral, giving nothing away. "And now you're working here." It came out wrong like another judgment and he winced. "I don't mean that the way it sounds. I just wonder why someone with your education and skills is working as a waitress?" She finished his sentence and something sharp flickered in her eyes. "Because life doesn't always go according to plan, Mr. Ashford. Because sometimes circumstances require us to do what's necessary rather than what we hoped for. Because jobs that use multiple languages and international relations degrees aren't easy to come by when you need immediate income." She picked up the plates again. "If you'll excuse me, I have other tables to serve." Julian watched her go, feeling worse than before. He'd apologized, but it had sounded hollow even to his own ears. What did sorry mean to someone who had to swallow her pride every night, who had to let people like him underestimate her? "Ready?" Patricia appeared at his elbow. "The car is waiting." In the limousine back to his office, Julian couldn't stop thinking about Amara. About her perfect French, her composure, the hospital bracelet on her wrist. About what kind of circumstances would force someone to set aside their dreams. "You're thinking about her," Patricia observed. "The waitress. Amara. Her name is Amara." "Okay. You're thinking about Amara." Julian looked out at the bright city lights streaming past. She shouldn't be serving tables. She should be working in international business or diplomacy, or something that uses her skills. Probably. But that's not your concern. Maybe it should be. He turned to face Patricia. "What if I offered her a job? We need someone in international relations. Someone who actually speaks the languages, who understands cultural nuances." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Is this about helping her or assuaging your guilt?" "Both." "Is that so wrong?" "No. But make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Don't make her your charity case to feel better about yourself." Patricia gathered her briefcase. "And maybe figure out why she's working there first. Because I guarantee there's a reason, and it might not be something a job offer can fix." The car pulled up to his office building. As Julian got out, he made a decision. He would find out Amara's story. And if there was a way he could help, he would. Not because he wanted to feel better about himself, though that was part of it. But because someone with her talent and dignity deserved better than being mocked by men like him. He just had to figure out how to do it without making things worse. Amara's feet ached as she let herself into the small apartment at 2 a.m. The bright hallway lights stung her eyes after the long shift. She kicked off her shoes and peeled off the red uniform dress, trading it for soft pajamas before collapsing onto the worn couch. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother's nurse. "All stable tonight. She's sleeping peacefully. Had a good day." Relief flooded through her. Good days were precious now, each one a small victory against the illness that had invaded their lives like a thief. Amara closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept replaying the scene at table 7. Julian Ashford's mocking voice. The laughter of his companions. The moment she'd decided to respond, to let him see that she was more than he'd assumed. She'd felt powerful in that moment. Vindicated. But now, alone in her apartment, she felt tired. So tired of proving herself, of fighting to be seen as human, as equal, as worthy of basic respect. Her phone rang, startling her. The hospital. Her heart jumped, but the nurse on duty quickly reassured her. "Nothing wrong, honey. Your mama just woke up and wants to talk to you." Seconds later, her mother's voice came through, weak but warm. "Baby girl? You just getting home?" "Yes, mama." "How are you feeling?" "Better today. The new treatment seems to be helping." Her mother paused. "You sound exhausted." "Just a long shift." "Tell me about it. Tell me something good." Amara smiled despite herself. Her mother always wanted stories, wanted to know about the world beyond her hospital room. So Amara told her about the elderly Italian couple who'd been celebrating their 50th anniversary, About the little girl who tried to order in French and got all the words mixed up, about the beautiful flower arrangements on each table. She didn't mention Julian Ashford. "That's my girl," her mother said when she finished. "Making people's nights special. You have such a gift for making people feel welcome." "Mama, I'm a waitress. I take orders and bring food." "No, baby. You're a woman with a heart big enough to do what needs doing without losing yourself. I'm proud of you." Tears stung Amara's eyes. "I miss you. I miss having you home. Soon. The doctors say maybe a few more months of treatment and I can come home." Her mother's voice grew softer. "I know you gave up so much for this. Your job at the nonprofit, your apartment, your savings. But we'll get through it." "We will," Amara agreed, though the weight of it pressed on her chest. The medical bills were overwhelming. Even with the job at Le Parisien, with its good tips and steady hours, she was barely keeping ahead of them. One bad month, one unexpected complication, and everything would crumble. After saying goodnight to her mother, Amara finally fell asleep on the couch, too tired to make it to her bedroom. She dreamed of her university days, of sitting in lectures about international policy, of studying late in the library, of believing that the world was full of possibilities. She'd graduated summa cum laude with a degree in international relations from Georgetown. She'd won awards, earned scholarships, spent a semester abroad at the Sorbonne where she'd perfected her French and fallen in love with European history. She'd been offered a position at a prestigious nonprofit focused on refugee resettlement, helping families navigate new countries and new languages. It had been her dream job. She'd been helping people, using her education, making a difference. Then her mother got sick. Stage 3 cancer. Aggressive. The treatments were brutal and expensive. Insurance covered some but not all. Definitely not the experimental trial that offered the best hope. That cost thousands out of pocket, every month, indefinitely. Amara had made the choice without hesitation. She'd quit her job at the nonprofit. No way could she take time off for hospital visits and still meet their demanding schedule. She'd moved out of her nice apartment into this cheaper one. She'd sold her car, her furniture, anything that could be converted to medical expenses. And she'd started applying to jobs that paid better, with more flexible hours. That's how she'd ended up at Le Parisien. The tips were excellent, the hours worked around her hospital visits, and they didn't ask too many questions about why someone with her qualifications wanted to serve tables. Most nights she was fine with it. She reminded herself that this was temporary, that her mother's health was worth any sacrifice, that she was doing meaningful work even if it wasn't the kind she'd imagined. But tonight, after Julian Ashford's casual cruelty, after being reminded so sharply of the gap between who she was and who people assumed she was, the weight felt heavier. Morning came too quickly. Amara dragged herself off the couch and prepared for another day. Hospital visit at 10, shift at Le Parisien at 4. The routine that had become her life. At the hospital, she found her mother sitting up in bed, looking brighter than she had in weeks. The new treatment really was helping. Her skin had more color, her eyes more life. "Look at you," Amara said, kissing her mother's forehead. "You're glowing." "I feel better. Stronger." Her mother, Lorraine Thompson, patted the bed beside her. "Sit. Tell me what's really going on. You have that look." "What look?" "The one that says you're carrying the world on your shoulders and trying to pretend it's light." Amara sighed. She couldn't hide anything from her mother. "Just tired? Nothing serious." "Baby, I know this has been hard on you. I see the bills even though you try to hide them. I know what you gave up." Lorraine took her daughter's hand. "When I get out of here, we're going to get you back on track. Back to the work you love. Mama, don't worry about that. Right now, we focus on you getting healthy." "I'm getting healthy. And when I'm better, I'm going to help you get back to your real life. This waitressing thing, it's not who you are." "It's honest work," Amara protested. "There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. But it's not your calling. You were meant for bigger things. For helping people on a larger scale." Lorraine squeezed her hand. "Promise me you won't give up on your dreams. Not permanently." "I promise." But even as she said it, Amara wondered what dreams looked like anymore. Everything had narrowed to this. Keep her mother alive, keep the bills paid, keep moving forward one day at a time. The rest of the hospital visit passed peacefully. They talked about lighter things, about plans for when Lorraine came home, about redecorating the apartment, about starting a small garden on the balcony. Hope painted in small strokes. Amara left the hospital feeling lighter, but reality crashed back as she checked her phone. Another medical bill, this one for a specialist consultation. $2,000. Her stomach dropped. She had maybe $300 in her account after rent. The tips from last night would help, but not enough. Never enough. At Le Parisien that evening, she tried to focus on work. Smile, take orders, bring food, collect tips. The rhythm was soothing in its predictability. Until Julian Ashford walked through the door. He was alone this time, dressed more casually in dark slacks and a blue button-down. He scanned the dining room, and when his eyes landed on her, something shifted in his expression. Determination. Oh no. He asked the hostess for a table in Amara's section specifically. She watched this happen, watched him point to her area, watched the hostess nod and lead him to table 12. Destiny appeared at her elbow. That's the guy from last night, isn't it? Yes. What's he doing back here? I don't know. But I'm about to find out. Amara approached the table with her notepad ready and her professional mask in place. Good evening, Mr. Ashford. Welcome back to Le Parisien. He looked up and she noticed things she hadn't before. The lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than he frowned, usually. The nervous way he fidgeted with his napkin. The genuine regret in his expression. Good evening, Amara. I was hoping you'd be working tonight. What can I get you to drink? Water is fine. But I actually came here to talk to you if you have a moment. I'm working, sir. I don't really have time for conversations. I understand. But please just hear me out. He leaned forward slightly. I owe you more than the apology I gave last night. What I did was worse than rude. It was cruel. I made assumptions about you based on your job, and I tried to humiliate you for my own amusement. Amara said nothing, just waited. I've been thinking about it all day. About why someone with your education and skills is working here. And I realized it's none of my business, but I also realized that maybe I could help. Help how? Her guard went up immediately. I run an international real estate development company. We need someone in our international relations department. Someone who speaks multiple languages, who understands cultural nuances, who can communicate with our partners around the world. He pulled out a business card and set it on the table. I'd like to offer you a position. Amara stared at the card without touching it. Is this a pity offer? Guilt money? Maybe partly. But it's also a legitimate business need. I've been looking for the right person for months. Someone like you would be perfect. You don't know anything about me. I know you speak at least 5 languages fluently. I know you have grace under pressure. I know you're educated and professional. He paused. I also noticed the hospital bracelet on your wrist. I don't know the details, but I'm guessing you're working here out of necessity, not choice. Amara's jaw tightened. That's personal. I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to pry. I just want you to know that if circumstances are keeping you from using your real skills, maybe I can help change those circumstances. She wanted to throw the card back at him. Wanted to tell him to take his guilt and his pity and leave. But then she thought about the medical bill on her phone. About her mother's face this morning, so hopeful. About the fact that a real job with benefits and a salary could change everything. What's the salary? She heard herself ask. He named a figure that made her knees weak. 3 times what she made now. With benefits. With paid time off. I can't accept this, she said, even though everything in her screamed to grab the opportunity. It's not right. You're only offering because you feel guilty. Yes, I feel guilty. I should feel guilty. Julian's voice was earnest. But that doesn't make the job offer any less real. We genuinely need someone with your skills. I've been interviewing candidates for 3 months. None of them had your qualifications. You don't know my qualifications. You've never seen my resume. Then show me. Come to the office tomorrow. Bring your resume. Interview properly. He stood, leaving cash for the water he hadn't drunk. If you're not right for the job, I'll tell you. But at least give yourself the chance. He walked toward the door, then turned back. Amara? Sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the smartest thing you can do. Then he was gone, leaving her standing there with his business card in one hand and her notepad in the other, her mind spinning with possibilities and fears. Destiny rushed over. What was that about? I think I just got offered a job. What kind of job? The kind that could change everything. Amara looked at the card. Julian Ashford, CEO, Ashford International Development. The question is, do I have the courage to take it? Amara didn't sleep that night. She sat at her small kitchen table, Julian Ashford's business card in front of her, her laptop open to his company's website. Ashford International Development. The photos showed sleek buildings, international projects, a staff of diverse professionals and bright conference rooms. Everything looked legitimate. She Googled Julian himself. Forbes articles called him a self-made billionaire who'd built his empire from a single property development into a global operation. But older articles told a different story, or at least added context. His father had been a commercial realtor who'd helped him get his first project. He'd had seed money from family friends. He hadn't started from nothing, even if he liked to think he had. Still, he'd built something real. And the job he was offering was real too. She could see the listing on their careers page: International Relations Specialist. 5 languages preferred. Experience in cross-cultural communication. Salary range exactly what he'd quoted. The job had been posted for 3 months. He hadn't lied about that. At 3 in the morning, she finally wrote an email. Professional brief. Mr. Ashford, I appreciate your offer. I'd like to schedule an interview at your convenience. Attached is my resume. Regards, Amara Thompson. Then she attached her resume, the one she'd polished for years, the one that listed her Georgetown degree, her Sorbonne semester, her language certifications, her work at the refugee nonprofit. The resume of someone who was meant to do more than serve tables. She hit send before she could change her mind. His response came at 5:30 in the morning. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll have my assistant send you the address and building access information. Looking forward to it. Amara spent the next day in a blur of preparation. She visited her mother in the morning, telling her about the interview but not the circumstances that led to it. Lorraine's face lit up with pride and hope. I knew something good would happen, her mother said, squeezing her hand. I've been praying for a breakthrough. It's just an interview, Mama. Don't get too excited yet. Baby girl, you're brilliant. They'd be lucky to have you. Amara chose her interview outfit carefully. A green blazer over a white blouse, black pants, simple jewelry. Professional but not trying too hard. Her natural hair was styled in soft curls that framed her face. She looked capable. Confident. The opposite of how she felt inside. Ashford International Development occupied 15 floors of a downtown high-rise. The lobby was bright and modern, all glass and steel and natural light. The receptionist, a young man with a friendly smile, directed her to the 20th floor. Julian's assistant met her at the elevator. Miss Thompson? I'm Rachel Kim. Mr. Ashford is ready for you. The executive offices were beautiful. Large windows overlooked the city. The walls were decorated with photos of international projects. Everything was painted in clean whites and soft grays, with pops of color from modern art pieces. Julian's office was at the end of the hall. Rachel knocked once, then opened the door. Miss Thompson is here. Thank you, Rachel. Please hold my calls. Julian stood as Amara entered. He wore a navy suit today, professional and expensive. But his expression was different from the arrogant confidence she'd seen in the restaurant. He looked almost nervous. Amara. Thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please sit. She sat, placing her portfolio on her lap, her hands folded over it. Come. Professional. Even though her heart hammered. I read your resume last night, Julian began, sitting behind his desk but leaning forward, engaged. Georgetown, summa cum laude. Semester at the Sorbonne. Fluent in French, Spanish, Italian, Mandarin, and English. 3 years at Refugee Resettlement International. That's impressive. Thank you. Why did you leave RRI? They're a respected organization. Here it was. The moment she had to explain. My mother got sick. Stage 3 cancer. The treatments are expensive and she needs a lot of care. I couldn't maintain the travel schedule RRI required while also being present for her medical appointments. I'm sorry. Is she doing better? She is actually. The new treatment seems to be working. Amara met his eyes directly. But the medical bills are substantial. I need steady income and flexibility for hospital visits. That's why I took the position at Le Parisien. Julian nodded slowly. And if you worked here? Would you have that flexibility? I don't know. That's part of what I need to understand about this position. Fair enough. Let me explain what we need. He pulled out a file. We do development projects in 12 countries currently, with plans to expand to 5 more in the next year. We need someone who can communicate with our international partners, who understands cultural differences, who can review contracts in multiple languages, who can travel occasionally for site visits. How occasionally? Maybe once a month for 2 or 3 days at a time. Sometimes less, depending on the project cycle. Amara calculated. Her mother's nurse could handle a few days. The treatments were every 2 weeks now, but she could schedule around them. That might work. We also offer excellent health insurance that could potentially cover your mother's treatments, depending on the specifics. Julian pulled out another document. The benefits package includes family coverage. Amara's breath caught. Family coverage. That could change everything. Really? Really? I'd need to have HR confirm what's covered, but our insurance is comprehensive. For the first time since entering the office, Amara felt tears threaten. She blinked them back, maintaining composure. But the hope that surged through her chest was almost painful. Julian saw it. His expression softened. Amara, I want to be clear about something. Yes, I'm offering you this job partly because I feel terrible about how I treated you. But I'm also offering it because you're genuinely qualified. I've interviewed 6 other candidates for this position. None of them had your combination of skills and experience. But you didn't interview me. Not really. You're offering based on one conversation in a restaurant. Then consider this the interview. Tell me about your work at RRI. Tell me about a challenging situation you navigated. So she did. She told him about helping a Syrian family resettle in Chicago, about the language barriers and cultural misunderstandings, about helping the teenage daughter enroll in school and the father find work. She told him about coordinating with multiple agencies and government departments, about the paperwork and the patience required. She told him about the joy on their faces when they finally had their own apartment, when the father got his first paycheck, when the daughter made her first American friend. That's what I want to get back to, she finished. Helping people. Making connections across cultures. Using language as a bridge instead of a barrier. Julian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, pushing her to elaborate on specific challenges. By the time they finished, nearly an hour had passed. You're exactly what we need, he said finally. I'd like to offer you the position. Starting salary as discussed, with benefits including family health coverage. 2 weeks of paid time off to start, increasing with tenure. Flexible hours for family care needs, as long as you meet your deadlines and project requirements. Amara's hands trembled slightly. Why are you doing this? Really? Julian stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Because 2 nights ago, I was cruel to someone who didn't deserve it. Because I made assumptions based on nothing but prejudice. Because I've spent my whole life thinking I earned everything myself, when really I had advantages I didn't even see. He turned back to face her. You called me out, with grace and dignity, and it made me look at myself honestly for the first time in a long time. So yes, this is partly about my guilt. But it's also about trying to be better. About recognizing talent when I see it. About making things right when I've done wrong. He walked back to his desk. You don't have to decide now. Talk to your mother. Think about it. But please let me do this. Let me help. Not because you need saving, but because you deserve the opportunity. Amara stood slowly. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to protect herself, to not trust this offer that seemed too good to be true. But she thought about her mother's face this morning. About the medical bills piling up. About the dreams she'd set aside. About Julian's honest admission of his flaws and his genuine desire to help. I'll need to arrange my schedule at Le Parisien, she heard herself say. Give them notice. Julian's face broke into a smile. Does that mean you're accepting? Yes. The word came out stronger than she felt. Yes, I'm accepting. With gratitude. Thank you. You won't regret this. He extended his hand. Welcome to Ashford International Development. She shook his hand, his grip firm and warm. Thank you for the opportunity. And for the honesty. As she left his office, carrying a folder full of paperwork and a head full of possibilities, Amara felt something she hadn't felt in months. 2 weeks later, Amara sat at her new desk on the 14th floor of Ashford International Development, surrounded by bright morning light from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her office was small but nice, with a view of the city and enough space for the bookshelves she'd already started filling with language dictionaries and cultural guides. Her first day had been overwhelming. There was so much to learn about the company's projects, their international partners, the ongoing contracts and negotiations. But Rachel, Julian's assistant, had been patient, walking her through everything. Patricia Okafor, the VP of International Operations who'd been at the restaurant that night, had taken her to lunch and given her the real story about each project. Julian's heart is usually in the right place, Patricia had said over salads. But he sometimes needs reminding that business is about people, not just profit. I think you're going to be good for him. For all of us. Now 2 weeks in, Amara was starting to find her rhythm. This morning, she was reviewing a contract for a development project in Madrid, translating some of the technical terms that the Spanish partners had questions about. It was exactly the kind of work she loved. Detailed, meaningful, connecting people across language barriers. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother's doctor. Results from yesterday's scan are in. Can you come to the hospital this afternoon? Her stomach tightened. Scan results could be good or bad. But she'd learned not to panic until she knew for sure. She knocked on Julian's office door. He looked up from his computer, waving her in. What's up? I need to leave early today. Hospital appointment with my mother's doctor. Of course. Take whatever time you need. He paused. Everything okay? Scan results. Won't know until I hear them. Do you want company? I mean, not at the appointment itself, but maybe for support. He seemed to realize how that sounded and quickly added, sorry, that's probably overstepping. I just know medical stuff can be stressful. Amara was surprised by the offer, and by the genuine concern in his voice. Over the past 2 weeks, Julian had been nothing but professional and respectful. He checked in on her work, offered guidance when needed, but never pushed or hovered. He seemed to have learned from that night at the restaurant, carrying himself with more humility. I'll be okay, she said. But thank you. At the hospital that afternoon, Amara held her mother's hand as Dr. Patel pulled up the scan images. The tumor has shrunk by 40%, Dr. Patel said, her smile wide. The experimental treatment is working better than we hoped. Lorraine gasped, tears immediately springing to her eyes. Amara felt her own tears coming and didn't try to stop them. What does this mean? She asked. It means we're winning. It means if this continues, we might be able to move to maintenance treatment instead of the intensive protocol. It means, Dr. Patel looked at both of them, your mother is getting better. They held each other and cried, relief pouring out in waves. All the fear, all the stress, all the endless worry finally had a counterweight. Hope. Real, tangible hope. When can I go home? Lorraine asked, wiping her eyes. Let's do another scan in 3 weeks. If the trend continues, maybe another month after that. Dr. Patel made some notes in her chart. I want to be cautious, but I'm optimistic. Driving back to work, Amara felt light. Her mother was getting better. The new job was working out. The medical bills were becoming manageable with her new salary and the insurance that had indeed covered most of the treatment costs. Things were actually okay. When she got back to the office, she found a small gift box on her desk. Inside was a beautiful pen, elegant and expensive, with a note in Julian's handwriting. Congratulations on 2 weeks. You're doing great work. It was a simple gesture, but it touched her. He was trying, really trying, to be better. She found him in his office, working late. Thank you for the pen. It's beautiful. He looked up, smiling. You're welcome. How did the appointment go? If you want to share. She did want to share. The tumor shrunk 40%. My mother is getting better. Amara, that's wonderful. His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. I'm so happy for you. Thank you. And thank you for everything. The job, the insurance, the flexibility. It's made all the difference. You've made a difference here too. The Madrid team specifically requested to work with you again. They said you're the best communicator we've ever had. Pride warmed her chest. That means a lot. Over the next few weeks, a pattern developed. Julian would stop by her office with questions about projects, but those conversations would drift into discussions about books they'd both read, places they'd both traveled, ideas about international development and cultural exchange. They discovered they both loved mystery novels and hated romantic comedies. They both thought the best food in the city was at the small Ethiopian restaurant downtown. They both believed that language was more than words, it was understanding. It wasn't flirting exactly. It was friendship, tentatively built on mutual respect and shared interests. Amara found herself looking forward to these conversations, to Julian's laugh when she made a joke, to his thoughtful responses when she shared an idea. One evening, working late on a presentation for a potential project in Seoul, Julian knocked on her office door. Still here? Almost done. This proposal is due tomorrow. Want help? I speak terrible Korean, but I can proofread the English parts. They worked together for the next 2 hours, sitting side by side at her desk, their shoulders occasionally brushing as they leaned over the laptop. It felt natural, comfortable. When they finally finished, it was after 9. Hungry? Julian asked. We could grab dinner at that Ethiopian place. Amara hesitated. Dinner felt like crossing a line from professional to personal. But her stomach was growling and she was tired of eating alone. Okay. But I'm paying for myself. Deal. The restaurant was small and cozy, with bright blue walls and traditional artwork. They ordered a vegetable combination platter and tore into the injera bread, the easy conversation continuing. Can I ask you something? Julian said after a while. Why did you respond that night at Le Parisien? You could have ignored me, gotten the manager, handled it a dozen different ways. Amara considered the question. I was tired of being invisible. Tired of being underestimated. I spent my whole life working twice as hard to be seen as half as good. And that night, something in me snapped. I decided if you were going to judge me anyway, at least I'd give you something real to judge. Julian nodded slowly. I deserved it. Worse than it, actually. You did. But you also did something rare. You admitted you were wrong and you tried to make it right. She met his eyes across the table. Not many people do that. I'm trying to be better. You make me want to be better. He said it simply, without pretense, and Amara felt something shift between them. Something warm and uncertain and entirely new. She wasn't ready to examine it too closely. Not yet. But she felt it, and from the look on Julian's face, so did he. They finished dinner and walked to the parking garage together. At her car, Julian paused. I'm glad you took the job. I'm glad you offered it. He smiled, and in the bright garage lighting, she noticed things she hadn't before. The kindness in his eyes. The way his smile was slightly crooked. The way he looked at her like she mattered. See you tomorrow? He asked. See you tomorrow? Driving home, Amara thought about kindness. About how small acts, consistently done, could change the shape of a life. About how people could grow and learn and become better versions of themselves if given the chance. About how sometimes accepting help wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. Spring arrived in the city with sudden warmth and bright blue skies. 3 months into her position at Ashford International Development, Amara felt like she'd finally found her footing. The work was challenging and fulfilling, using all her skills and then some. She'd successfully negotiated contracts in French and Spanish, had video conferenced with partners in Beijing and Rome, and was currently working on a proposal for a community development project in Sao Paulo. More importantly, her mother was thriving. The tumor had continued to shrink, and last week Dr. Patel had finally said the words they'd been waiting for, "You can go home." Lorraine was now set up in Amara's apartment, the nurse visiting 3 times a week for checkups and maintenance treatments. But she was walking, cooking again, laughing. The transformation was miraculous. You look happy, Patricia observed one morning, stopping by Amara's office with coffee. She'd become a mentor and friend, often checking in to see how Amara was adjusting. I am. My mother is home. Work is going well. Things are good. Things are good, or a certain CEO is good? Patricia's tone was teasing but not unkind. Amara felt her cheeks warm. I don't know what you mean. Girl, please. I've watched you two circle each other for 3 months. The long conversations in his office. The joint presentations. The way he lights up when you walk into a meeting. Patricia sipped her coffee. I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm just saying I notice. We're friends. That's all. Okay. But if it becomes more than friendship, make sure you're both clear on boundaries. Office romances can get complicated. Patricia left, but her words lingered. Was something developing between her and Julian? They spent a lot of time together, both at work and occasionally outside it. They'd been to 3 different restaurants, had gone to a lecture on international trade policy, had even met for coffee a few times on weekends. But it was all very proper. Professional. Even when it felt personal, they maintained careful distance. That afternoon, Julian knocked on her door looking excited. Got a minute? Always. The Soul project got approved. Full funding for the community center, including the language learning programs you suggested. He sat in the chair across from her desk. Your proposal made the difference. The investors loved your cultural sensitivity analysis. That's wonderful. Amara couldn't help but grin. The Soul project had become personal to her, a chance to create something that genuinely helped people. There's more. They want us to visit the site, meet with the local partners, finalize the plans. I thought maybe you'd want to come? It would be a week-long trip. You'd get to see the project come to life. A week in Seoul. Sounded amazing. But also dangerous in a way she couldn't quite articulate. A week alone with Julian, away from the office structure, from the clear boundaries of work. I'd need to make sure my mother is okay with me being gone that long. Of course. Talk to her. Think about it. We wouldn't go for another month, so there's time. That evening, over dinner at home, Amara told her mother about the opportunity. Lorraine sat at the small kitchen table, looking healthier than she had in a year. She'd gained back some weight, and her eyes were clear and bright. You should go, she said immediately. But I'd be gone a week. Baby, I'm fine. The nurse comes regularly. I have friends who check on me. You need to live your life, not just take care of me. Taking care of you isn't a burden, Mama. I know that. But I also know you've put your whole life on hold for me. This job, it's giving you back some of what you lost. Let it give you more. Lorraine studied her daughter. Besides, spending a week with Julian might help you figure out what's really going on between you two. There's nothing going on. Amara Thompson, I raised you better than to lie to your mother. You talk about that man more than anything else. Your face changes when you mention his name. Something is happening whether you want to admit it or not. Amara sighed. I don't know what it is. We're friends, but sometimes it feels like more. And I'm scared. Scared of what? Of getting hurt. Of it being one-sided. Of ruining a good working relationship. She paused. Of being wrong about him. Lorraine reached across the table and took her hand. Love is always a risk. But so is never trying. That man looks at you like you hung the moon. Even I can see that, and I've only met him once. Julian had come to the hospital to meet Lorraine 2 weeks ago, bringing flowers and his genuine congratulations on her recovery. He'd been respectful and kind, asking about her treatment, listening to her stories, making her laugh. Lorraine had approved immediately. What if it doesn't work out? Then you handle it with the same grace and dignity you handle everything else. But baby, what if it does work out? What if this is the beginning of something beautiful? The next day, Amara told Julian she'd go to Seoul. His face lit up with genuine joy, and she felt her heart skip in response. The weeks leading up to the trip were busy with preparations. But they also spent more time together outside of work. Julian invited her to an art gallery opening, introducing her to his friends with obvious pride. She invited him to a fundraiser for Refugee Resettlement International, where he surprised her by making a substantial donation. One Saturday they met for brunch at a cafe with bright yellow walls and enormous windows. The conversation flowed easily, jumping from current events to childhood memories to dreams for the future. I want to do more projects like Seoul, Julian said over coffee. Not just buildings but things that actually help communities. Schools, community centers, affordable housing. That's a big shift from pure commercial development. You've been a good influence. You reminded me why I got into this business in the first place. Not to make money, though that's nice. But to create something meaningful. I think you always had that in you. You just forgot for a while. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. It was the first time he'd touched her like that, deliberately, personally. His palm was warm against her skin. Thank you for seeing something in me worth believing in. Even after how we met. Amara didn't pull away. Thank you for proving my belief was justified. They sat like that for a long moment, hands connected, eyes meeting across the table. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of what was building, what they were both feeling but not yet ready to name. When they finally left the cafe, walking through the sunny afternoon streets, Julian walked close enough that their shoulders brushed. It felt right. Natural. Like they fit together. Are you feeling the connection growing between Amara and Julian? Do you believe in second chances and the possibility of real change? If this story touches your heart, if you see yourself in Amara's courage or Julian's journey toward becoming better, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stories of hope and transformation need to be shared. That night, alone in her room, Amara admitted to herself what she'd been avoiding for weeks. She had feelings for Julian. Real feelings. Not just gratitude for the job, not just friendship. Something deeper, something that made her heart race when he smiled, that made her look forward to Monday mornings just to see him. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The question was, what was she going to do about it? The annual Ashford International Development Gala was the company's biggest event. Held in a hotel ballroom with soaring ceilings and walls of windows overlooking the city, it brought together employees, investors, partners, and clients for an evening of networking, celebration, and fundraising for the company's community development initiatives. Amara had known about the gala since starting at the company, but she'd planned to skip it. These events were for executives and important people. She was still relatively new, still finding her place. Then Julian had shown up at her office door 3 weeks before the event. I need a favor. What kind of favor? Come to the gala with me. As my guest. Amara's heart had jumped into her throat. As your guest? Like a date. I mean, yes, if you're comfortable with that. If not, we can call it 2 colleagues attending together. He'd looked nervous, vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. But I'd really like to spend the evening with you. Properly. Not just as co-workers. She should have said no. Should have kept that boundary intact. But looking at Julian's hopeful expression, thinking about their growing connection, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. Okay. As a date. His smile had been brilliant. Really? Really? But I don't have anything appropriate to wear to something like this. Then let me help with that. Please. Consider it a perk of the job. He'd arranged for a personal shopper who'd helped Amara find the perfect dress. It was emerald green silk that flowed like water, with a halter neckline that showcased her shoulders and back. She'd felt beautiful trying it on, had seen herself transformed from waitress to woman who belonged in ballrooms. Now, the night of the gala, she stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adding the final touches to her makeup. Her mother appeared in the doorway, leaning on her cane but smiling wide. Baby girl, you look stunning. You think so? It's not too much. It's perfect. You're perfect. Lorraine came closer, adjusting one of Amara's earrings. You're going to walk into that room and make everyone wonder who the gorgeous woman on Julian Ashford's arm is. I'm nervous. Of course you are. But remember who you are. You're brilliant, accomplished, kind, and beautiful. Anyone would be lucky to have you. The doorbell rang. Julian right on time. Amara opened the door and felt her breath catch. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that somehow made his blue eyes even more striking. But it was his expression when he saw her that made her pulse race. Wonder. Admiration. Something deeper that made her skin warm. Amara. You look incredible. Thank you. You look pretty good yourself. He held out his arm. Ready? Ready. The ballroom was transformed into something magical. Hundreds of white lights hung from the ceiling like stars. The tables were decorated with blue and silver centerpieces, and a live band played soft jazz in one corner. People in formal wear mingled and laughed, champagne glasses in hand. Amara felt Julian's hand at the small of her back as they entered, a gentle, proprietary touch that sent shivers through her. He introduced her to various people, always with pride in his voice. This is Amara Thompson, our new international relations specialist. She's brilliant. Patricia found them near the bar, looking elegant in a maroon gown. Don't you two look beautiful together? Amara noticed Patricia's emphasis on together, and felt her cheeks warm. Has anyone from the restaurant crowd shown up? Patricia asked Julian quietly. Timothy Brooks is here. I saw him near the hors d'oeuvres table. Julian's jaw tightened slightly. Haven't seen the others yet. Restaurant crowd? Amara asked. The men who were with me that night at Le Parisien. They're all business associates. Some will probably be here tonight. Julian looked at her seriously. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, tell me immediately. I'll be fine. I can handle myself. I know you can. But you shouldn't have to. Dinner was served at 8, a multi-course meal that would have intimidated Amara a few months ago. But after years of working at Le Parisien, she knew her way around fancy table settings. She and Julian sat at the head table with other executives, and she found herself drawn into conversations about international business practices, cultural differences in negotiation styles, and the challenges of global development. She held her own, contributing insights that came from real experience working with refugee families, from her academic studies, from her natural intelligence. People listened when she spoke, asked follow-up questions, treated her with respect. Between courses, Julian leaned close. You're amazing. You know that. I'm just being myself. Exactly. And yourself is amazing. After dinner, as people mingled and the band shifted to dancing music, Amara excused herself to the restroom. She was checking her reflection when she heard voices from the hallway outside. Did you see who Julian brought? His new diversity hire. The waitress from that French place, right? The one who embarrassed him. Talk about pity dates. He must still feel guilty. Amara froze, her hand on the door handle. The voices were male, slightly drunk, casually cruel. She recognized one of them. Timothy Brooks, Julian's head of acquisitions. One of the men from that night. I heard he gave her some made-up job in international relations. Like she's qualified for that. She speaks some French. So what? That doesn't make her executive material. Julian's gone soft. Ever since that night, he's been on this redemption kick. It's pathetic. Something cold settled in Amara's stomach. Was that what people thought? That she was a pity hire? That she didn't deserve her position? She waited until the voices faded, then stepped out with her head high. She wouldn't let them see they'd gotten to her. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Back in the ballroom, she found Julian talking with a group of investors. He saw her approaching and his expression changed immediately. What's wrong? Nothing. Amara. He took her elbow gently, guiding her to a quieter corner. Something happened. Tell me. So she did. She told him about the conversation she'd overheard, about the casual dismissal of her qualifications, about being called a diversity hire and a pity date. Julian's face darkened with anger. Who said this? It doesn't matter. It absolutely matters. That's unacceptable. Julian, don't. Making a scene will only make it worse. Letting it go makes it seem acceptable. It's not. Before she could stop him, he was striding across the ballroom toward Timothy Brooks, who stood with two other men laughing about something. Amara hurried after him, her heart sinking. Timothy, we need to talk. Timothy turned, his smile slipping when he saw Julian's expression. Hey boss. Great party. I heard what you said. About Amara. About her being a pity hire. The color drained from Timothy's face. Julian, I was just joking around. I didn't mean anything by it. You called her unqualified. You dismissed her education, her experience, her skills. You reduced her to a charity case. Julian's voice was low but carried clearly. People nearby were starting to notice, conversations trailing off. I apologize, Timothy said quickly. I had too much to drink. I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think. You didn't think about how your words affect real people. You didn't think about the assumptions you make based on nothing but prejudice. Julian stepped closer. Let me be very clear. Amara Thompson is one of the most qualified people in this company. She has degrees I would kill for. She speaks 5 languages fluently. She's successfully managed projects that you couldn't handle if your career depended on it. The ballroom had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. She didn't get her job because I felt guilty, though I did and should have felt guilty for how I treated her. She got her job because she's brilliant. Because she earned it. Because she brings value to this company that goes far beyond anything you contribute. Amara wanted to sink into the floor. This was worse than the restaurant. Everyone was staring. Julian turned to address the whole room. Some of you were at Le Parisien a few months ago. You saw me try to humiliate a waitress by ordering in a language I thought she wouldn't understand. You saw me mock her, belittle her, treat her like she was less than human. He looked back at Amara, his eyes finding hers across the few feet that separated them. What you didn't see was how she changed my life. How she taught me that arrogance and cruelty are not strengths. How she showed me what real dignity looks like. How she made me want to be better. He crossed to her, taking her hand. Amara Thompson is not my pity hire. She's not my diversity trophy. She's my colleague, my friend, and someone I deeply admire. And if anyone in this room has a problem with that, they can take it up with me directly. The silence held for one more beat. Then Patricia started clapping. Slowly, others joined in until the whole room was applauding. Timothy approached them, looking genuinely contrite. Amara, I'm sorry. That was wrong of me. I let old attitudes guide my words and I have no excuse. Amara looked at him for a long moment. She could hold on to the anger, could refuse his apology. But what good would that do? He looked genuinely ashamed, and Julian had already made the point more powerfully than she ever could. Thank you for the apology. I accept it. Timothy nodded and backed away, his companions following. The party slowly resumed, though people kept glancing at them. Julian still held her hand, his grip tight. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I shouldn't have made a scene. But I couldn't let them diminish you like that. You defended me. Of course I did. You're important to me. More important than any of them. He paused. More important than I probably should admit in a professional setting. Amara's heart raced. Julian, dance with me, please? I promise no more dramatic speeches. She let him lead her to the dance floor. The band was playing something slow and romantic. Julian pulled her close, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers gently. They swayed together, and Amara rested her head against his shoulder, breathing in his cologne, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me. For believing in me. Thank you for giving me the chance to. They danced through 3 songs, wrapped in their own world, the rest of the gala fading into background noise. And in that moment, with Julian's arms around her and her heart full of feelings she could no longer deny, Amara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. The Seoul trip was scheduled for the following month, but before that, Julian and Amara had to navigate the new dynamic between them. After the gala, after Julian's public declaration of her worth, after that dance that had felt like everything shifting into place, they couldn't pretend anymore that their relationship was purely professional. But they also weren't sure what it was becoming. Monday morning after the gala, Amara arrived at the office early, hoping to get settled before running into Julian. She needed to think, to process, to figure out how she felt about everything that had happened. She found a note on her desk, handwritten in Julian's neat script. Coffee? My office when you get in. No pressure. Her heart did that stupid fluttering thing again. She grabbed her mug and headed to his office. He was at his desk, looking at his computer, but he stood when she entered. For a moment they just looked at each other. So, Julian said finally. That happened. That happened, Amara agreed, unable to stop the smile that curved her lips. I probably shouldn't have said all that in front of everyone. Probably not. But I meant every word. I know. She sat in the chair across from him, the same chair she'd sat in 100 times before, but everything felt different now. The question is, what do we do about it? Julian came around the desk, leaning against it so he was closer to her. What do you want to do about it? I don't know. This is complicated. We work together. You're technically my boss. There are power dynamics to consider. All true. But there's also this. He gestured between them. Whatever this is. And I think it might be worth figuring out. Amara's heart wanted to say yes immediately. But her head urged caution. What if it doesn't work out? What if things get messy? Then we deal with it like adults. But Amara, I've spent 3 months getting to know you. 3 months watching you work, listening to your ideas, learning about your dreams and fears. And every day I like you more. Respect you more. Want to be around you more. He moved to sit in the chair next to hers, turning to face her directly. I know I'm not perfect. I'm working on being better, but I still mess up. I'm probably going to say or do the wrong thing sometimes. But I promise you this. I will always be honest with you. I will always respect you. And I will never, ever take you for granted. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. I have feelings for you too. I've been fighting them because I was scared. Scared of getting hurt. Scared of losing this job if things went wrong. Scared of being wrong about you. Are you still scared? Terrified. Me too. But I think the scariest thing would be not trying at all. She reached out, taking his hand. His fingers interlaced with hers, warm and solid. Okay, let's try. Slowly. Carefully. And with some ground rules. Ground rules? No special treatment at work. I want to be judged on my merit, not on our relationship. No public displays of affection in the office. And if this doesn't work out, we both agree to be professional about it. Agreed. Though I reserve the right to look at you adoringly from across meeting rooms. She laughed, the tension breaking. I can live with that. Over the next few weeks they found their balance. At work they maintained professional boundaries. But after hours they spent more time together. Dinners at quiet restaurants. Walks through the city park. One memorable Saturday at a bookstore where they got into a friendly argument about mystery novels that lasted 3 hours. Julian met Lorraine properly, spending a Sunday afternoon at Amara's apartment. He brought flowers and listened to Lorraine's stories with genuine interest. When he left, Lorraine pulled Amara aside. That's a good man. He looks at you like you're the best thing that ever happened to him. Mama, it's still early. We're taking it slow. Nothing wrong with that. But baby, don't be afraid to let yourself be happy. You deserve this. The Seoul trip arrived quickly. They flew business class, which Amara had never experienced before. The seats were like beds, and she slept most of the 14-hour flight, waking occasionally to find Julian reading beside her, always with a soft smile when he noticed she was awake. Seoul was beautiful. Bright and bustling and full of life. Their hotel was in the Gangnam district, modern and sleek, with views of the city that took Amara's breath away. The first 2 days were filled with meetings. They met with local partners, toured the site where the community center would be built, discussed plans and timelines and budget. Amara translated when needed, smoothed over cultural misunderstandings, asked questions that showed she understood both the project and the community it would serve. Julian watched her work with obvious pride. She was good at this and she knew it. On the third evening, after a successful day of meetings, they walked through the Myeongdong shopping district. The streets were alive with people, bright store lights, street food vendors, and music from various shops creating a happy cacophony. Want to try some tteokbokki? Julian asked, pointing to a street vendor. You know what tteokbokki is? I did my research before the trip. Plus, our partner mentioned it's his favorite. They bought the spicy rice cakes and sat on a bench to eat them, watching people stream past. The food was delicious, sweet and spicy and perfectly chewy. This is nice, Amara said. Being here. Seeing the project. Being with you. Julian set down his food and took her hand. Can I tell you something? Of course. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast and maybe I shouldn't say it yet, but I can't keep it in anymore. His blue eyes were serious, vulnerable. You've changed my entire life. You've made me want to be better, do better, see the world differently. And somewhere along the way, I fell completely in love with who you are. Amara's heart felt like it might burst. She'd known she cared about him, but hearing him say those words made everything real in a way that was both terrifying and wonderful. I love you too, she whispered. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But I do. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, there on a bench in Seoul with people walking past and street food vendors calling out their wares. It was perfect. Not dramatic or over the top, just perfect. They spent the rest of the evening walking hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing, planning the future both of the Seoul project and of their relationship. Back at the hotel, they said goodnight with another kiss, and Amara went to her room feeling like she was floating. The next morning brought a surprise. In the hotel lobby, waiting with a briefcase and a nervous expression, was Timothy Brooks. What are you doing here? Julian asked, his tone immediately guarded. I came to apologize. Properly. Timothy looked at Amara. I was wrong. Not just at the gala but in my whole attitude. I've done some thinking since that night and I realized I've been carrying around a lot of assumptions and prejudices that I never examined. Timothy, you already apologized, Amara said. I know. But I wanted to do more than just say sorry. I wanted to show you I meant it. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. This is a proposal for a mentorship program at our company. Paid internships for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, focusing on building diverse talent pipelines. I got the idea from watching you work, from seeing what you bring to the table. He handed the folder to Julian. I thought maybe Amara could help develop it, since she has experience with refugee resettlement and understands these communities better than I ever could. If she's willing to work with me, that is. Amara took the folder from Julian, flipping through it. The proposal was thoughtful, detailed, genuinely aimed at creating opportunities for people who typically didn't get them. This is really good, Timothy. Thank you. I'm serious about this. About doing better. About being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. He met her eyes directly. You called me out without even trying. Just by being excellent, you showed me my own failures. Thank you for that. After Timothy left to catch his flight back, Julian turned to Amara. Are you okay working with him on this? I think so. People can change. You proved that. I'm still working on it every day. I know. That's what makes you worth it. They spent their last day in Seoul finalizing plans for the community center. The local partners were excited, the community leaders grateful, and Amara felt a deep satisfaction knowing she'd helped create something meaningful. On the flight home, she and Julian sat together, her head on his shoulder as he read and she dozed. They'd crossed into new territory on this trip. Not just professionally but personally. And despite her initial fears, it felt right. When they landed back home, Lorraine was waiting at Amara's apartment with dinner prepared. So, how was Seoul? She asked as soon as they walked in. Amara looked at Julian, who smiled back at her. It was perfect. 3 months after Seoul, Amara's life had settled into a rhythm that felt too good to be true. Work was fulfilling, her mother was healthy and happy, and her relationship with Julian grew stronger every day. They'd officially started dating, though they kept things professional at the office. After hours, though, they were inseparable. They discovered they both loved cooking together, often spending Saturday evenings in Julian's penthouse kitchen trying new recipes. They joined a book club together, where their friendly debates about literature continued. They volunteered at a local refugee center, using their language skills to help new families navigate their new lives. Julian had changed in visible ways. He was more thoughtful, more aware of his privilege, more willing to listen. He'd started a scholarship fund for students from low-income backgrounds interested in international relations. He'd implemented diversity training at his company, not the perfunctory kind but real, substantive programs that examined bias and created accountability. But more than that, he'd become gentler, kinder, more willing to admit when he was wrong. One evening, as they walked through the park near Amara's apartment, Julian suddenly stopped. I want to tell you something. Several things, actually. Amara turned to face him, curious. Okay. First, I love you. I know I've said it before, but I want you to know it's not something I say lightly. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love you too. Second, I know we've been taking things slow, being careful. But I don't want to be careful anymore. Not because I want to rush, but because I'm sure. I'm sure about you, about us, about what I want our future to look like. Amara's heart started to race. Julian. Third, and this is the important one. He took both her hands in his. I want you to know that I see you. Not just as my girlfriend, not just as a brilliant colleague. I see all of you. Your strength, your vulnerability, your dreams, your fears. And I love every part of what I see. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. Why are you saying all this? Because I want you to know where I stand before I ask you what I'm about to ask. He took a breath. Move in with me. Not right away if you're not ready. But soon. I want to wake up with you every morning. I want to build a life together properly. Amara felt joy and fear war in her chest. Moving in together was a big step. It meant trusting completely, risking everything on the belief that this would last. What about my mother? She's living with me now. I can't just leave her. So she comes too. My place is big enough for all of us. Or we find somewhere new, all three of us together. I don't care about the logistics, Amara. I just want you. You'd really welcome my mother into your home? She's part of you. She's part of what I'm asking for. He smiled. Plus, I really like her. She tells great stories. Amara laughed through her tears. I need to think about it. Talk to her. Make sure she's comfortable with everything. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. They continued their walk, hands linked, talking about what living together might look like. Where they'd put their books, how they'd split cooking duties, what kind of space Lorraine would need to be comfortable. That night, Amara talked to her mother over tea in their small kitchen. He asked you to move in? Lorraine's eyes sparkled. Oh baby, that's wonderful. But what about you? I can't just leave you. You're not leaving me. I'd be coming with you apparently. Though I'll need my own space. I'm not going to be some third wheel in your love nest. Mama. Amara felt her cheeks heat. I'm serious though. If you want this, don't let worrying about me stop you. Julian is good for you. You're good for him. And I want to see you happy and settled before. She trailed off. Before what? Lorraine set down her teacup. Dr. Patel said I'm in remission. Full remission. The cancer is gone. Amara felt the world tilt. What? When did she tell you this? This morning. I wanted to tell you in person. Tears ran down Lorraine's face. I'm okay, baby. I'm really okay. They held each other and cried, relief and joy pouring out in waves. Her mother was okay. Really truly okay. The nightmare that had dominated their lives for over a year was finally over. So you see, Lorraine said when they finally pulled apart, you don't need to worry about taking care of me anymore. I'm strong enough to take care of myself. Which means you're free to start building your own life. You'll always be part of my life. I know. But it's time for you to put yourself first. To choose happiness. To build something beautiful with someone who loves you. 2 weeks later, Amara gave Julian her answer. Yes. She'd move in with him. They'd find a place together, something with room for all three of them, something that felt like home. They found a beautiful townhouse with 3 floors, each bedroom on a different level for privacy, a big kitchen with an island where they could all cook together, and a small garden where Lorraine could grow vegetables. The neighborhood was bright and friendly, with tree-lined streets and cafes on the corner. Moving day was chaos. Friends helped carry boxes and furniture. Patricia showed up with pizza. Timothy came with his partner, eager to help and prove he was a changed person. Even some of Amara's former co-workers from Le Parisien came by, excited to see how far she'd come. At the end of the day, when everyone had left and boxes were scattered everywhere, Amara stood in the kitchen with Julian and her mother, looking around at their new home. This is really happening, she said softly. This is really happening, Julian agreed, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Lorraine smiled at them both. You two did good. Real good. That night, in their new bedroom on the 3rd floor, Julian and Amara lay tangled together in bed, exhausted but happy. Are you glad? He asked. About all of this? I'm terrified, she admitted. But yes, I'm glad. I'm choosing to trust this. To trust us. We're going to be happy here. I promise you that. You can't promise that. Life doesn't work that way. Okay, then I promise I'll do everything I can to make you happy. Every single day. How's that? That's better. She kissed him softly. I'll do the same for you. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, the sounds of their new neighborhood drifting through the open window, the future spread out before them full of possibility and hope. 6 months after moving into the townhouse, Amara stood in front of a room full of high school students at an international studies symposium. She'd been invited to speak about careers in international relations, about how language skills could open doors, about the importance of cultural understanding in an increasingly connected world. 5 years ago, she told them, I was working as a waitress despite having a degree in international relations. I'd given up my dream job to take care of my mother. I felt invisible, like all my education and potential didn't matter. She paused, looking at the diverse faces watching her. Then something happened that changed everything. Someone tried to humiliate me, to put me in my place based on assumptions about who I was and what I was capable of. And I had a choice. I could stay silent or I could speak up. Speaking up changed my life. It led to opportunities I'd never imagined. But more than that, it reminded me that our worth isn't determined by our circumstances. It's determined by how we show up, how we persist, how we refuse to let others define us. After the talk, students crowded around her with questions. About learning languages, about international careers, about overcoming obstacles. She answered each one thoughtfully, remembering what it felt like to be young and full of dreams but uncertain how to achieve them. Julian had been in the back of the room watching. When the students finally dispersed, he approached with pride written all over his face. You were amazing. They're good kids. Thoughtful questions. You're inspiring them. Showing them what's possible. They drove home together, talking about the symposium, about the Seoul Community Center that had opened last month to great success, about the mentorship program Timothy had launched that was already helping 15 students. At home they found Lorraine in the garden harvesting tomatoes. She transformed the small plot into a thriving vegetable garden, and she spent hours out there every day, her health fully restored. How did the talk go? She called out. Great. The kids were wonderful. Of course they were. They had a wonderful speaker. Lorraine handed them a basket of tomatoes. Make some pasta sauce with these. And invite Patricia over. She called earlier, said she had news. Patricia arrived an hour later looking excited. I'm being promoted. VP of International Operations for Asia Pacific. And I get to recommend my replacement. She looked at Amara pointedly. Interested? Amara felt her jaw drop. VP of International Operations? Patricia, I've only been with the company a year. And in that year you've successfully managed 3 major international projects, developed relationships with partners in 8 countries, and brought in 2 new clients through your cultural consulting work. You're more than qualified. She's right, Julian said. You'd be perfect for the role. But working for Julian would create problems with our relationship. People would say he's showing favoritism. Which is why I'm recusing myself from the decision, Julian said. The board will make the final call based on your qualifications and Patricia's recommendation. I won't be part of the vote. Also, Patricia added, this would mean you'd no longer report to Julian. You'd report directly to the board. So the conflict of interest goes away. Amara looked between them, her mind racing. VP of International Operations. A leadership position, a chance to shape the company's international strategy, to implement the ideas she'd been developing about ethical development and community engagement. Can I think about it? Of course. Take a week. But Amara? Patricia smiled. You deserve this. Don't let imposter syndrome tell you otherwise. That evening, Amara and Julian sat in their garden while Lorraine cooked dinner inside. The late summer air was warm and fireflies were starting to appear as dusk fell. Do you think I can do it? Amara asked. Be a VP? I think you can do anything you set your mind to. That's not helpful. You're biased. True. But I'm also right. He took her hand. You've already proven yourself 100 times over. This is just the next step. It's a big step. You've handled bigger. You rebuilt your entire life while caring for your dying mother. You took a risk on accepting help from someone who'd been cruel to you. You fell in love with me despite every reason not to. He squeezed her hand. This promotion is nothing compared to what you've already overcome. When did you get so wise? You taught me. Everything I know about real strength, about dignity, about perseverance, I learned from watching you. Amara leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm going to take the job. Good. You'll be brilliant at it. A week later, Amara officially became VP of International Operations at Ashford International Development. Her first act was to propose expanding the mentorship program company-wide. Her second was to establish a new initiative focused on community-driven development projects, where local voices guided international investment. The work was challenging but fulfilling. She traveled regularly, always returning home to Julian and her mother and the life they'd built together. She hired a diverse team of young professionals, many of them from backgrounds similar to hers, and mentored them with the same care Patricia had shown her. Julian continued his transformation too. He became known not just as a successful developer but as someone who genuinely cared about ethical business practices. He spoke at conferences about the importance of listening to communities, about recognizing privilege, about doing the work to be better. On their 1-year anniversary of moving into the townhouse, Julian planned a special dinner. He cooked all of Amara's favorites, set the table with candles and flowers, and invited Lorraine to join them. "What's the occasion?" Amara asked, eyeing the elaborate setup. "Can't I celebrate the people I love?" Over dinner they talked about the past year. About Lorraine's garden winning a neighborhood award. About the Seoul Community Center serving 200 families. About Amara's successful first 6 months as VP. About Julian's new focus on affordable housing development. After dessert, Julian stood and pulled a small box from his pocket. Amara's heart stopped. "Before you panic," Julian said quickly, "this isn't what you think." "Well, it sort of is, but not exactly." He opened the box. Inside was a beautiful ring, but not an engagement ring. It was simpler, more understated, with a small emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds. "This is a promise ring," Julian explained. "A promise that when the time is right, when we're both ready, I'm going to ask you properly. But for now, I just want you to know that I'm committed to us, to our future, to building something lasting together." Tears welled in Amara's eyes. "Julian, I know we've been through a lot in a short time. I know we're still figuring things out. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So this is my promise. When you're ready, ask me. Or I'll ask you. But either way, I'm here. For as long as you'll have me." Amara took the ring, sliding it onto her right hand. It fit perfectly. "I love you. So much." "I love you too." Lorraine, who'd been dabbing her eyes with her napkin, raised her glass. "To new beginnings. To second chances. To love that grows from the most unexpected places." They clinked glasses, and Amara felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. Her journey from Le Parisien to here had been long and sometimes painful. But every step had been necessary, had led her to exactly where she was meant to be. She looked around the table at the two people she loved most in the world. At her mother, healthy and thriving. At Julian, who'd proven that people really could change, could grow, could become better versions of themselves. She thought about the girl she'd been a year and a half ago, standing in a restaurant in a red uniform, being mocked by a man who saw her as nothing. That girl had been brave enough to speak up, smart enough to recognize an opportunity when it appeared, and wise enough to accept help when it was offered. That bravery, that wisdom had led to this moment. To a career she loved, a family that supported her, and a partner who saw her exactly as she was and loved her for it. Outside the window, fireflies danced in the garden Lorraine had planted. Inside, the three of them talked and laughed late into the night, planning the future and celebrating the present. And Amara, who'd once felt invisible, who'd once been dismissed as just a waitress, who'd once thought her dreams were out of reach, felt herself relax into the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Sometimes life surprised you. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. Sometimes accepting help wasn't weakness but the beginning of something beautiful. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, kindness and hope and love didn't just lead the way. They became the destination itself.